Most men believe they wield power, but few truly understand it. Today, we strip away illusions and reveal the brutal hierarchy that separates the puppeteers from the pawns. Which level are you truly standing on, and who is quietly controlling you? In the corridors of influence, power is never given. It is seized, maintained, and feared. Men delude themselves with titles, wealth, and fleeting admiration, believing these grant them dominion. Yet, true power resides not in what is seen, but in the unseen currents that bend others to your will. Today, we descend into the hidden architecture of authority, where each level of power carries its own temptations, traps, and ruthless necessities. Prepare to confront the truth of your own position, or the truth that will soon confront you. You believe you are in control. You believe your position, your title, your wealth, your influence. These are the measures of power. But what if I told you most men live their lives as puppets, unaware of the strings that bind them? Power is rarely what it appears to be. It is never in the proclamation, never in the applause, never in the hollow gestures of respect. It is in the quiet dominion over minds, in the unseen currents that move empires, families, and men like pieces on a chessboard. Consider the Roman statesman Cicero, admired, envied, revered, yet ultimately powerless in the tides of politics he could not control. His eloquence could sway assemblies, but it could not save him from conspiracies, betrayal, or the cunning of those who truly understood the subtle forces of influence. Titles and speeches are illusions. They are mirrors held up to a world that mistakes visibility for authority. Ask yourself, how often have you been impressed by someone merely because of what they display? And how often have you failed to see the network of loyalties, fears, and manipulations that truly determine outcomes? Power, in its most ruthless form, is always invisible. It is not the general commanding troops, but the strategist who anticipates every maneuver. It is not the king issuing decrees, but the advisor who whispers what the king ought to hear. When Napoleon marched across Europe, he did not rely solely on his armies. He relied on the chaos of his enemies' ambitions, on the fear he instilled, and on the ability to manipulate perception. True power lies in understanding these unseen mechanisms and using them. Look around your own life. Who obeys you because they are compelled by force, and who because they believe it is their choice? Who fears you, and who merely tolerates you? The line is thinner than you imagine, and crossing it requires more than ambition. It requires insight. The illusion of power is seductive because it flatters the ego. It whispers that your authority is absolute, that the world bends to your will. But illusions can crumble like sand when faced with cunning, patience, and subtlety. History is littered with men and women who mistook visibility for strength. Julius Caesar appeared omnipotent, yet he was assassinated by those who understood the fragile nature of perceived power. Even kings, emperors, and modern CEOs who command millions, who shape industries, are vulnerable the moment they ignore the hidden forces that determine loyalty, obedience, and influence. Power is not in what you hold. It is in what you control, and often control is silent, invisible, and cruelly efficient. Psychology tells us why this illusion grips the mind. Humans are naturally impressed by symbols, titles, wealth, trophies of status. Yet beneath this surface lies fear, envy, desire, and submission. Those who master the invisible currents understand this instinctively. They cultivate admiration where it serves them, manipulate envy to distract attention, and inspire fear only when it solidifies their position. They do not need to shout their power. They let it echo in subtle gestures, in the absence of resistance, in the quiet recognition of others' dependency. Think of the court of Louis XIV, the Sun King. The king himself was powerful, yes, but the real triumph was in the orchestration of nobles who competed for his favor while remaining entirely dependent on it. He understood that control is not a matter of dominance. It is a matter of orchestration. The more others believe they are free, the more they dance to your tune. This is the paradox of true authority. The visible ruler is often a mask for the invisible architect who moves the pieces unseen. Now, I ask you, where do you stand in this invisible hierarchy? Are you a master of perception or a victim of it? Do you wield influence, or are you merely admired? The difference is subtle, yet it determines everything. To see power clearly is to begin to acquire it. To mistake appearances for reality is to walk blind into the hands of those who understand the game far better than you ever will. And so, as you reflect on your own place in this hierarchy, remember this: those who fail to recognize the illusion of power are destined to be controlled by it. The question is not whether you hold authority. It is whether you know the hidden mechanisms that decide who truly commands and who merely pretends to. In the next segment, we will peel back another layer of this hierarchy, the delicate balance between fear and loyalty, and why one can dominate the mind more completely than the other. If you think power is simple, you are dangerously naive. If you wish to rise beyond the illusion, you must learn to manipulate what cannot be seen: fear and love. Two forces that shape the destiny of men, two levers that can elevate a ruler to godlike authority, or plunge him into ruin. Most who aspire to power misunderstand their delicate interplay. They believe loyalty can be bought with kindness alone, that admiration is sufficient to secure obedience. But those who have studied the currents of influence know the truth: fear is precise, reliable, and immediate. Love is fragile, fleeting, and ever vulnerable to betrayal. Ask yourself this: when someone serves you out of affection, how quickly does that allegiance crumble in the face of temptation, personal gain, or fear of loss? And when someone obeys you out of fear, does it not ensure that your commands are executed with rigor, that your authority is recognized even when you are absent? The ancients understood this well. Consider Augustus, who ruled Rome with a combination of subtle clemency and ruthless enforcement. He cultivated the loyalty of the Senate with gestures of respect, yet he never allowed that respect to interfere with his ability to strike decisively at those who opposed him. Fear tempered affection, affection softened fear. The result: unbroken control. Power is rarely won by blunt force alone. The world does not respond to threats with admiration, nor to kindness with unwavering submission. It responds to perception. The perception of strength, the perception of consequences, the perception that your will is inexorably decisive. The Medici of Florence mastered this principle. They lavished patronage and cultivated art to be loved. Yet they moved in shadows, orchestrating assassinations and alliances so that any who would challenge them learned the peril of disobedience. The lessons are clear: love can elevate, but fear secures. Yet fear must be wielded with subtlety. Tyranny is easy to achieve, greatness is not. A ruler who rules solely through terror ignites rebellion. The populace may obey today, but tomorrow they plot in silence. The key is to inspire a measured dread, not blind hatred, a recognition of consequences, not despair. How often have you seen authority crumble because the ruler was feared too little or too much? Consider the fate of Louis XVI. Loved by many, yet unable to instill fear effectively, his crown fell beneath the weight of the very people who once revered him. The balance of fear and affection is the fulcrum upon which power pivots. This principle extends beyond kings and emperors to every sphere of influence. In the boardroom, in the family, in the intricate games of alliances and rivalries, those who understand how to cultivate both fear and respect advance effortlessly. Observe the tactician, the CEO, the general. Each carefully calibrates presence and absence, reward and punishment, kindness and severity. Each knows that obedience bought with fear is temporary unless tempered with trust, and trust without fear invites betrayal. Psychology illuminates why this balance is so vital. Humans are inherently dual in their loyalties. They desire security, yet they crave favor. They submit to authority, yet they rebel against oppression. To master them, you must speak to both halves of their nature simultaneously. Fear anchors them to your power, affection binds them to your identity. This dual strategy, so often ignored, separates rulers who endure from those who fall. It is the secret the masses never see, and the tool the wise wield without hesitation. Reflect upon your own influence. Do those around you follow because they love you, or because they fear the consequences of defiance? Can you inspire both? or are you blind to the intricate dance that governs human loyalty? If you mistake affection for obedience, or if you rely solely on fear, you will discover, often too late, that power is an illusion. True authority is a precise equilibrium maintained through calculation, patience, and the willingness to act decisively when necessary. And so, as you ponder the delicate art of commanding loyalty, remember this: those who master fear without losing affection shape destinies. Those who fail to calibrate either are swept aside. The power to inspire, to compel, to manipulate. This is the silent force behind every throne, every empire, every conquest. In the next segment, we will explore the hidden ladder itself, the 5 levels of power, from mere survival to total dominion, and how understanding your rank can allow you to maneuver unseen, ascend strategically, and avoid the traps that have claimed the most ambitious minds in history. Your perception of where you stand may be far from reality, and only those who see clearly can rise. The hidden ladder of power is rarely spoken of openly, yet it governs every ambition, every alliance, every betrayal. Most men wander through life believing that influence is granted equally, that effort alone guarantees ascension. They mistake position for authority, connection for control, and visibility for dominion. But power is structured, tiered, and merciless. To climb, you must first understand the steps beneath your feet and the consequences of a misstep. Consider the courts of Europe, where princes and advisors maneuvered with the precision of chess masters. Each move was calculated, each smile and slight observed, catalogued, and exploited. Those who understood the hidden hierarchy thrived. Those who did not were crushed under the weight of unseen forces. The ladder is simple in theory, yet treacherous in execution: survival, influence, manipulation, control, and ultimate dominion. At each stage, the rules change, the players shift, and the stakes escalate. Level 1 is survival. The majority of men never rise beyond this stage, struggling merely to maintain their position in a hostile world. In survival, power is reactive, temporary, and fragile. You are governed by fear, circumstance, and the whims of others. Do not underestimate it. Many tragedies begin here, when men cling to their comfort, unaware that true opportunity requires risk, cunning, and sacrifice. Survival is not shameful, it is the crucible in which ambition is tested. Are you simply surviving, or are you preparing to ascend? Level 2 is influence. Here, you begin to bend perception. You are no longer entirely subject to the whims of others. You cultivate allies, you craft reputations, you deploy charm and intimidation strategically. Think of Niccolò Machiavelli's Florentine contemporaries, men who were not kings, yet shaped policies, whispered counsel, and directed outcomes from behind the curtain. Influence is seductive, for it offers the illusion of power without the burdens of ultimate responsibility. Ask yourself, do people seek your counsel or merely tolerate your presence? Do they act when you suggest or only when compelled? Level 3 is manipulation. Influence is passive, manipulation is active. You begin to orchestrate events, to plant seeds of action, thought, and loyalty without revealing your hand. Consider Cardinal Richelieu, who ruled France not through open authority, but through the mastery of intrigue. Each courtier, each noble, each official was a piece in a grand design, moved silently by unseen pressure, subtle threat, or carefully placed favor. Manipulation is art and science, combined, an act of psychological architecture, where perception is sculpted and obedience engineered. Level 4 is control. By this stage, your power is recognized, respected, and feared. Others follow your directives, not merely out of obligation, but because resistance is impractical. You have learned to anticipate threats, neutralize rivals, and command loyalty with precision. Alexander the Great exemplified this stage. His armies obeyed implicitly, not because of law or coin, but because his vision and ruthlessness were undeniable. Control is not guaranteed by force alone. It is cemented by mastery over perception, alliances, and fear. Level 5 is dominion. Few ever reach it. Here, you shape history itself. Your influence is invisible yet absolute. Nations bend to your strategy, outcomes are dictated by your foresight, and the world recognizes your authority without challenge. Think of Genghis Khan or Queen Elizabeth I, architects of destinies, whose decisions echoed across generations. Dominion is not merely power, it is immortality through impact, the rarefied command of the currents that shape civilizations. Where do you stand on this ladder? Most men do not even see it. They scramble, clash, and exhaust themselves at the lower rungs, blind to the steps above. And yet, even at the highest levels, miscalculation is fatal. One false assessment, one misplaced trust, and the carefully constructed hierarchy collapses. History is littered with those who reached the summit only to be toppled by ambition, envy, or oversight. Recognizing your level is not vanity, it is strategy. It allows you to act with clarity, to choose allies, to deploy tactics appropriate to your position. Misjudgment is fatal. A man acting with influence as if he holds dominion will be destroyed by those who do. A man clinging to survival as if he commands control will be swept aside by forces he cannot see. Power demands honest appraisal of oneself, cold calculation, and relentless adjustment. And now, as you ponder your place on this hidden ladder, remember, knowing the levels is not enough. The next step is understanding the currency that moves between them. The manipulation of perception, the orchestration of influence, and the ruthless exploitation of opportunity. Those who master the ladder ascend, those who ignore it are trampled. In the next segment, we will explore the subtle art of manipulation itself, how to wield influence like a weapon, how to bend others to your will without revealing your intent, and why the greatest victories are often invisible. The question is simple: are you prepared to act like a master, or will you remain a pawn? Manipulation is the currency of power. Influence alone is passive, control alone is brittle. To ascend the ladder, to truly dominate, one must master the art of shaping thought, bending perception, and orchestrating action. All without revealing the hand that guides it. Few ever recognize the subtlety required. Most believe coercion or charm is sufficient. They are wrong. Subtlety, patience, and precision decide who rules and who obeys. Consider the Venetian Republic, a city of merchants and spies, where survival depended on subtlety more than swords. Senators, ambassadors, and advisors navigated webs of information, rumor, and perception. The power of the Republic was not in its armies, but in its ability to manipulate knowledge, to turn loyalty, envy, and ambition into instruments of governance. Who controlled information controlled behavior. Who controlled behavior controlled the state. And yet, no one saw the puppet strings unless they were prepared to look. Ask yourself, how often do you act openly, believing honesty is strength, while others manipulate your decisions behind the veil of appearances? Manipulation is rarely malicious in its intent. It is strategic. It is the careful orchestration of reality, where perception becomes more consequential than fact. Do not confuse deception with stupidity. Deception is a tool, wielded with precision, often more powerful than any sword. The greatest victories are those that leave no trace, where opponents never understand the hand that moved them. Look to history. Cardinal Richelieu ruled France not by decree alone, but through a network of manipulation. He cultivated allies, planted rivalries, and orchestrated conflicts to weaken opposition before they realized their danger. Each move was invisible yet devastating. Each act of influence left others believing they were in control, while the architect of their fates observed quietly. Could you distinguish such manipulation if it were directed at you? Most cannot. The mind, when left untrained, accepts the narrative offered by those more cunning. Psychology reinforces this. Humans crave patterns, explanations, and causes. They seek coherence, even when reality is fractured. Manipulation exploits this instinct. By controlling information, framing perception, and appealing to biases, a master can lead others to act exactly as desired, believing they chose freely. Consider the subtle dynamics in families, workplaces, and alliances. The suggestion placed at the right moment, the praise offered to redirect ambition, the omission that creates fear. These are the instruments of silent conquest. Yet manipulation is a delicate art. Misjudge a personality, misread an ambition, and your efforts collapse. Julius Caesar, for all his genius, faced betrayal from those who miscalculated his foresight. Those around him believed themselves in control, even as he orchestrated the broader stage. But their arrogance, their inability to see manipulation as strategy, became his undoing. Power is never static. It is a battlefield of perception, and the slightest lapse can be fatal. You must ask yourself, are those around you merely reacting to circumstance? Or have you guided them without their knowledge? Have you learned to plant ideas, provoke responses, and direct actions without overt intervention? True mastery is invisible. To manipulate effectively is to render your influence unquestioned, unquestionable, yet unseen. The opponent cannot resist what he does not recognize. The ally will follow you, believing loyalty was his choice. And you, silent in observation, collect victory without risk, without overt conflict. But beware, manipulation is a double-edged weapon. The same subtlety that bends others can entrap the careless manipulator. A misjudged character, a misapplied pressure, and those who act under your orchestration may turn the mechanisms of influence against you. History is rife with such examples, men toppled by their own schemes, empires crumbling under the weight of overconfidence, alliances fractured by miscalculated ambition. The finest manipulations demand constant vigilance, adaptability, and cold assessment of both opportunity and threat. And so, as you reflect on your own capacity to guide, to bend, to orchestrate the world without revealing your hand, remember, manipulation is the silent engine of power. Those who wield it skillfully rise. Those who ignore it perish. The next step is understanding control itself, how to solidify obedience, neutralize threats, and command loyalty with precision. Influence moves the pieces, manipulation bends the board, but control ensures the game is never lost. In the next segment, we will dissect the mechanics of control, the strategies, the psychology, and the ruthless decisions that separate those who dominate from those who merely survive. Ask yourself, are you prepared to act decisively? Or will the currents of ambition sweep you aside? Control is the decisive pivot between ambition and dominance. Influence can sway, manipulation can bend. But control ensures obedience, loyalty, and the execution of your will without hesitation. Few ever achieve it, and fewer still maintain it. To control is to command not merely action, but perception, allegiance, and consequence. Those who grasp this principle shape history. Those who do not become instruments in the hands of others. Ask yourself, when you issue a command, does it move the intended outcome, or merely provoke resistance? Are your directives followed because others respect your wisdom, or because they fear the consequences of defiance? The difference is subtle, yet it determines survival. Consider the generals of antiquity, Alexander, Caesar, Hannibal. Each commanded men. Yet their control was not through mere authority. It was the precision of expectation, the orchestration of consequence, the silent but undeniable presence that ensured their orders became action. Soldiers followed not out of love, nor out of whim, but because defiance was unthinkable. Control is often invisible. Observe Elizabeth I, who ruled a kingdom teetering on religious, political, and social tensions. Her control was neither brute force nor constant vigilance. It was the cultivation of loyalty, the strategic distribution of power, and the awareness of threats before they emerged. She shaped perception as much as policy, inspiring devotion while neutralizing dissent. Those who appear to lead with force often fail. Those who maintain invisible control endure. Ask yourself, can you command presence without aggression, authority without overt display, compliance without coercion? The psychology behind control is mercilessly simple. Humans desire clarity, security, and structure. They obey those who can provide it. But they also resist those who threaten their sense of autonomy. A master of control leverages both instincts. Fear ensures compliance, respect ensures stability. Yet neither is absolute. Too much fear breeds rebellion. Too much respect breeds entitlement. True control requires observation, subtlety, and adaptation. A constant calibration between firmness and flexibility. Consider the structure of the Ottoman Empire. Sultans wielded unimaginable authority, yet relied on a complex system of administrators, military elites, and palace networks to maintain it. Control was embedded not in fear alone, nor in loyalty alone, but in the precise orchestration of incentives, consequences, and perception. Rebellion was not prevented by swords alone, it was prevented by understanding the minds of those who might wield them. Control is a web unseen, intricate, and far-reaching. In practical terms, control requires foresight. You must anticipate ambition, predict envy, and neutralize threats before they manifest. Julius Caesar, for all his brilliance, fell because he misjudged the ambitions around him. Those he trusted as allies orchestrated his downfall, exploiting gaps in his control. Power is never static, it is a battlefield of perception, and the slightest neglect allows chaos to seep in. Ask yourself, have you accounted for the hidden currents in your environment? The ambitions, resentments, and fears that silently shape outcomes. Control is also personal. One cannot command others without mastering oneself. Indecision, hesitation, and visible uncertainty erode authority faster than overt rebellion. Napoleon, for example, understood this perfectly. His presence alone shaped behavior, his confidence compelled action, his ruthlessness deterred opposition. To command control, you must first project control, not as a mask, as an inevitability others recognize and accept. The observer must believe that compliance is not optional, but a rational, inevitable choice. And yet, even mastery of control is not absolute. Threats emerge, alliances fracture, and perception shifts. To maintain dominance requires constant vigilance, recalibration, and the willingness to act decisively when subtle measures fail. Those who mistake control for permanence are often the first to fall. History is littered with men and women who commanded great power, only to be undone by neglect, complacency, or miscalculation. So, where do you stand? Can you ensure obedience, anticipate ambition, and project certainty? Do others act because they recognize your authority, or merely because they hope to avoid conflict? True power is not in moving pieces. It is in orchestrating the board, unseen yet undeniable. Control is the bridge between strategy and legacy. In the next segment, we will ascend to the final level, dominion, the rarefied mastery of power where influence, manipulation, and control converge into absolute authority. Few reach it. Fewer endure it. Ask yourself, are you prepared to rise, or will the currents of ambition sweep you aside before you even grasp the summit? Dominion, the summit of the hidden ladder. Few ever reach it, and fewer still maintain it. It is the point where influence, manipulation, and control converge into a single, irresistible force. Here, the world no longer merely responds to you. It bends to your design, often without knowing it. Dominion is not granted by title, wealth, or recognition. It is seized through vision, calculation, and the ruthless orchestration of human behavior. Ask yourself, do you act as a participant in the world, or as the architect of its currents? Do events shape you, or do you shape events? Those who mistake command for dominion are destined to be swept aside. True dominion requires seeing all the threads, understanding every motivation, and calculating the consequences before they manifest. Alexander, Genghis Khan, and Elizabeth I, these were not rulers by chance. They were architects of reality, able to bend men, armies, and nations to their will while remaining steps ahead of ambition, envy, and chaos. Dominion begins with perception. The masses do not follow the strongest. They follow the inevitable. Caesar did not command merely because he was brilliant. He commanded because all perceived that resistance was futile. Napoleon did not conquer solely through strategy. He conquered because his presence created certainty, and certainty is the currency of obedience. Dominion is achieved when others recognize not only your power, but its inevitability. Ask yourself, can you cultivate that perception, that aura of inevitability, in every environment you inhabit? Yet dominion is invisible. Those who flaunt it often invite challenge, for visibility incites ambition. The greatest rulers operate subtly, shaping outcomes while leaving others believing they act freely. Consider the Medici family in Renaissance Florence. They never wore crowns, yet their influence dictated alliances, wars, and the very fate of the city. Their dominion was not obvious, yet absolute. Those who see the hand that moves them rarely resist, for the perception of inevitability suppresses rebellion before it can ignite. Control alone is fragile without foresight. Dominion requires anticipation, an ability to foresee not just immediate threats, but the subtle shifts in loyalty, ambition, and circumstance. The fall of empires often begins not with conquest, but with misjudged perception. Consider the decline of the Roman Empire. Power without adaptability, authority without insight, control without foresight. These were the seeds of collapse. To dominate is to see the battlefield of human nature in its entirety, to act before resistance forms, to remain several moves ahead at all times. Psychology reveals why dominion is so rare. Humans are unpredictable, driven by fear, desire, envy, and ambition. Yet these same drives can be harnessed, bent, and orchestrated. The master of dominion manipulates these impulses with precision, turning them into instruments of obedience. They engineer loyalty through respect, fear, and perceived inevitability, while silencing rebellion through anticipation, subtle redirection, and strategic incentives. Every move is calculated, every outcome foreseen, every response controlled before it occurs. Dominion also demands sacrifice. Absolute authority is not comfortable. It is lonely, requiring vigilance at all hours, judgment that often conflicts with morality, and decisions that weigh more heavily on the mind than on the flesh. History is littered with the great who faltered at the summit, not through lack of cunning, but through complacency, indulgence, or miscalculation. Those who reach dominion and maintain it treat every alliance, every ambition, and every perception as tools to be calibrated, not as comforts to be enjoyed. Now ask yourself, where do you stand in this hierarchy? Do you act, or do events act upon you? Do you merely influence, manipulate, and control, or can you bend the currents themselves to your will? Dominion is the rarest level because it demands mastery of all others. Survival, influence, manipulation, and control, combined with vision, anticipation, and relentless self-discipline. Few ever achieve it, fewer endure it. And yet, the summit is not a destination, it is a responsibility. To dominate is to shape destiny, to guide the tides of human ambition, and to wield consequences invisible yet inescapable. Those who reach dominion understand that every decision, every word, every gesture is a tool in the orchestration of history itself. They act decisively, with clarity, and with the awareness that the world is a stage, and they are the director. In the next reflection, we will explore the essence of sustaining dominion, how the invisible ruler maintains power across generations, how perception, fear, and loyalty are continuously calibrated, and why only those who remain vigilant can convert momentary mastery into enduring legacy. Ask yourself, are you content to climb, or do you wish to command the heights where history itself bends to your will? Power is rarely what it appears to be. The visible ruler is often a pawn. The true master moves unseen, shaping thought, bending will, orchestrating action without a single overt gesture. Ask yourself who truly obeys you, and who merely believes they do. The difference defines the rise and fall of men, kingdoms, and empires. Influence without perception is empty. Manipulation without subtlety is exposed. Control without foresight is fragile. Those who understand these principles do not need to dominate with force. They guide, they direct, they create the illusion of choice, and others march willingly into the currents they have prepared. This is the art of power, invisible, relentless, inevitable. Now reflect. Where do you stand on this ladder? Are you a pawn, a player, or the unseen hand that shapes the board? If these truths strike you, act. Comment below your thoughts. Share your reflections, your strategies, your awakenings. Subscribe to grasp more Machiavellian insights, to see what others cannot. Share this video with those unready to see the world as it truly is. Power favors those who perceive it first, and act before others even know the game has begun.